Welcome, writers, readers, and friends to the Authors Talking Bookish podcast. I'm Donna Norman Carbone, author of All That Is Sacred.
And I'm Hope Gibbs, author of Where the Grass Grows Blue.
We're two debut writers traditionally published by a small publishing house, bringing to you all the experiences that we as authors learn the hard way, so you don't have to.
We'll give you insights from the inception of a book idea to publication and beyond. And along the way, we'll share our love of books from the writer's perspective.
Welcome back, friends. This is episode 33, Leveraging a Successful Career Through Public Relations. And we are so excited. We have two amazing guests today to share with you, Michelle Glogovac and Lilian Sue, who are both in the PR business, and they're going to tell us all about what they do. I'm Donna Carbone, and I'm joined by Hope Gibbs. Hi, Hope.
Hey, Donna, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am so excited. It's October, and I saw this when we were meeting up before we went on air. I love your outfit. You look like October. You have this cute vest on and flannel. I'm just so excited for October.
I love it. It's feeling very October-like here. The leaves are falling and it's chilly, but I love it.
Well, today I am so excited because we're not interviewing one guest. We have two, and I'm just going to go on and bring them on. We have Michelle and Lilian. Hello, ladies.
Hello. How are you all?
Hi.
Hi. Nice to meet everyone.
Yes. And this is such an important subject that I think that authors in particular, they struggle with it. It is public relations, how to get yourself out there, because you're not just marketing and trying to get your book out there. You have to get yourself out there as a brand. And I think this is a really hard discussion for a lot of authors. I know it was hard for me to put myself out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we get started, we would love to introduce you to our guest. I'm going to give you a little background about Michelle. So Michelle is the podcast matchmaker, an award-winning publicist, host of the My Simplified Life podcast, author of How to Get On podcast. Michelle is working with clients who make an impact defining their stories and matching them with the perfect podcast. She has helped entrepreneurs, authors, nonprofits hone their storytelling abilities, grow their businesses, and elevate themselves. Michelle is a sought-after speaker as well, and she has presented thousands of publicists and groups on how not to only perfectly pitch a podcast, but to create a marketing content from every interview. She has coached 14,000 authors through the process of creating and launching a podcast book tour through the Nonfiction Writers Association. So that is just amazing. And so we're so excited to have you here. Donna, could you tell us a little bit about Lilian?
Absolutely. Lilian Sue is the longtime PR coach and publicist behind the powerful Publicity prescription and her signature one-on-one PR coaching programs designed to empower creative entrepreneurs to break down the barriers of fear, anxiety, and imposter syndrome, stopping them from moving forward with business growth, giving them the tools, resources, and personalized guidance they need to harness the power of publicity to reach their full potential. Her mission is to educate and empower entrepreneurs, small business owners, and nonprofits from all walks of life to unlock their superpowers to make positive impacts they want to on the world and embrace the lives of joy, growth, and learning. Welcome, Lilian Sue and Michelle. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah,
to meet Lilian.
You too, Michelle.
Let's dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Why don't you go first, Donna?
Okay. So this question is for Lilian. Could you tell us about your journey into public relations and what motivated you to specialize in storytelling and relationship building?
Well, to really get to the heart of this story, I'm going to have to go back a little bit. As far as storytelling goes, I've always had a love of fiction storytelling. I was writing a lot of stories and poetry and fanfic and everything, and I've been doing that the past 20 some odd years. Now, I was told, and this was pre self-publishing, that if I wanted to make it as a novelist, I was more than likely going to starve. So I needed to then pivot that, I could keep writing stories for myself, but then I thought, hey, what about helping other entrepreneurs and authors and small businesses get their stories out there, to really leverage my love of my own storytelling to helping other people get out there. So I originally started my business in college as a way to get freelance work to build a portfolio. And I had originally started in copywriting and social media strategy. And I got into PR because I had a lot of entrepreneurs coming to me and saying, hey, is PR something you do? I'd like a news release. And I thought, well, I got tired of telling people no. So I thought, hey, I'm in the middle of a transition period in my life as it is. At the time I was moving, I was engaged, I was wedding planning. I thought, why not try incorporating PR into my skill set, see if I like it. So I cut my teeth doing contracting work for a couple of agencies in town. Fell in love with doing PR initially for food and beverage companies. Indie film and television was really big. And it just so happened as I transitioned into doing more of it on my own, I ended up having a couple of really long-term filmmaker relationships. A few filmmakers said, I'm transitioning to writing graphic novels. Is doing PR for authors something you consider doing? So I started focusing more on that area, and then PR coaching came about because the pandemic came about, and there were a lot of entrepreneurs that said, I'd love to work with you on a campaign, but I don't think I can afford it.
Oh,
so I thought, hey, I'm sitting on all these years of knowledge and experience and everything, and at the same time, all the interactions I've had with prospective clients and my agency colleagues have had with prospective clients, we keep bumping up against the same unrealistic expectations, the same limiting beliefs. The people coming to us and saying, I'm here because so-and-so says I need PR, when they don't really understand what it is or even if they're prepared for it. So I thought, coaching may be the route for me to go with this. And I had worked with a business coach and enlisted in a mindset coach as well. But in order to get to that point where I was comfortable coaching and actually talking to my clients about, hey, this is why you need to get out there, I had to first do the work, recognize, why am I not getting out there? Where are my fears coming from? Where are my anxieties coming from? And how can I show my clients how to break past those barriers if I'm not willing to do the work myself?
Yeah. That's great. Well, Michelle, I would love to get your perspective. I would love to know about your journey into the world of public relations and podcasting, and what initially drew you to this field.
So like Lilian, it goes back. I actually spent 18 years in corporate aviation selling jet fuel to corporate flight departments. And that was because during college, I needed a part-time job and I could walk to the airport. My major was law. So originally I thought I was going to be an attorney. So there's a lot of pivots in what I thought was going to happen. And after 18 years, I had then 2 little ones at home. My kids are a year and 3 weeks apart. So they were quite literally not even toddlers. And I was laid off. And at that point, I decided, what can I do to make the world a better place for them? And I know it sounds very woo, and I'm not one of those woo-woo people, but at that point, I thought, I'm saving the wealthy money to fly more. And what is that doing for my kids? And it was at that point that a friend introduced me to a life and business coach who was launching her podcast. And I was like, I don't even know how to listen to a podcast. This was 2018, discovered the purple button on my iPhone and started listening and went, oh, okay, so she's going to share all of these steps on how to find your purpose and your passion. This is what I need. This is what I'm going to do. And she ended up reaching out to me and saying, you understand what my message is. You're already posting all over social media. Do you want to pitch me to be interviewed on other shows? And that was when the light bulbs went off of, yes, this is what podcasts have the power to do, to share stories of other people, to build empathy, to give free knowledge and education to others. And then it became, I launched my own show as well. And I produced some shows, but I fell in love with the pitching part because I can connect with clients to decide, what is that's interesting about you? What story, what aspect is there? What can you teach people? And then to be able to connect with hosts, who are trying to do the same thing. And then I'm a big book reader. As you can see behind me, I have tons of books I've been reading since like the Babysitter's Club books came out, right? I was always in my room. And I found that on my own show, having a show, I could ask authors to come on, interview them. And I was like, this is my guilty pleasure. I get to interview authors because I simply go, I read your book and I want to interview you. And the light bulbs all came on of, why don't I create the podcast book tour so that I can have other readers, get to know these authors that we don't get to know. We read their books, we fall in love with their words, we fall in love with them, but we don't really get that opportunity to hear in their own words from them. And so that's how I got to come more into the author world and, helping authors and interviewing authors. And it makes me so excited that I get to, authors to me are like celebrities that we don't recognize on the street. So to be able to elevate them in that way and share the people behind the books is what really excites me, in addition to, working with the various clients that I have, to share their stories and to help build empathy. I know that Lilian also works with nonprofits, and I've been very lucky in working with nonprofits and having team members share the why behind why they're working with this nonprofit. It's so important. And it's the part that connects people to nonprofits. It connects readers to these books. And so that's why I love podcast PR and why I focus on that and not all traditional PR, because the podcasting aspect is just so special to me.
That's really interesting. I'm hearing a couple of commonalities in your past, both book coaching and storytelling. And I'm just wondering, and either one of you can answer this question, how do you help clients find their unique stories?
What I do I have 3 signature talks that are really focusing on unlocking, embracing, and harnessing what I call your PR superpowers. And what I mean by your PR superpowers is really embracing and celebrating your own personal and professional lived experiences. Because I've talked and worked with quite a few fiction and nonfiction authors, and so much of the fear, the anxiety, and all those limiting beliefs are tied up upon, I don't feel like I'm an expert in this subject matter because I didn't work in this industry for 20 plus years and I don't have a degree in this. Therefore, why would anyone want to hear from me on it? And a lot of the authors that have approached me have always said, why can't my book do the talking for me? Like, I've released my book, people can read it, that should be it. And I say to them, unfortunately, there are thousands of authors on a daily basis that write in the same genres you do. And readers, especially today, have limited attention spans, limited funds, and there is so much in the marketplace that is vying for their attention. It's not to say that you shouldn't have a great blurb, your book isn't superbly written, you shouldn't have a fantastic book cover. But what's really going to get people to buy into supporting you and grabbing a copy of your book is if they get to know who you are. Why? Because people buy from people. People learn to trust people. So when it comes to really finding their unique story, what I tell them is they're not looking for your life story. So all those fears that you have about losing control of your narrative and opening yourself up to judgment and rejection, what they're really looking for is what are the parts of your story that inspired you to go on this journey as a writer? You know, when you came from point A to point B, how did you do it? Why did you do it? What were the reasons why you decided to write this, and why you decided to put in certain instances, certain themes, different forms of representation in the book, whether it's trauma from mental health issues or what have you. There's for all of us, whether we write fiction or nonfiction, we put pieces of ourselves in those books, and people want to know why, in order for them to see, will this book, this author actually really resonate with me enough that, maybe I'll want to follow them and I'll want to buy the book and maybe attend their book signing so I can get it signed, right? It's really about recognizing that when you choose to get out there, and so many authors I know build fantastic social media platforms up until a point, because it eventually plateaus. The algorithm dictates who sees your content, and oftentimes it's the same members of your audience over and over again, and they don't feel like they're making headway. Well, being able to embrace PR and really celebrate your own story allows you not to sell your book to strangers, but to find that common ground with that podcaster, that blogger, that, maybe YouTube show host, and expand your community, because you are building that relationship on that common ground of something that you're both passionate about. So it's really about helping authors remove these limiting beliefs and learn how to push past them, so that, I'm not saying the fear goes away entirely, but you're doing it in spite of the fear, because there is potential there for you to really build that trust and credibility with your readers.
Yeah. And Donna and I've had this conversation. We actually just did a podcast not long ago. It was inspired by an article from a very successful author about how much of her personal life she wanted to give to her audience. And there is this balance that as writers and authors, you have to figure it out for yourself. And so it's really important to also figure out your boundaries as well, because it's hard to toot your own horn, so to speak. It's hard to put yourself out there on social media, but you have to be comfortable, but you also have to know it is something, if you want to sell books, they go hand in hand. Don't you agree with that, Donna?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also feel like, to speak to your point, Lillian, about having the same audience on social platforms, you don't want to keep going back to the same well, because that well is going to dry up eventually. You need to continue broadening your reach, so to speak. So yeah, I think that's a really good point.
And I want to pivot back to podcasts, because obviously we do have a podcast and we have Michelle here. And Michelle, I know that you pitch for authors to get on podcast, but if you're just an author out there that, you don't have your expertise, Michelle, what do you think are some of the critical elements of a successful pitch to get on a podcast for writers?
It's really to be personal. I don't like the word authentic, because I think it's so overused. You don't have to use it if you're just showing up as yourself. You just are who you are. But to really share of yourself right from the get-go in your pitches, relate to the host, listen to the show before you even write the opening line and sentence. Listen to it, relate to it. Don't choose the most recent episode. Scroll through and really, dedicate some time and some homework to it. And then share your knowledge. Be as open as possible with what you know, where you've been. I know that we've talked about boundaries and how much of your personal life do you want to share, but the more you share, the more people are going to also give you. And so I think it's so important to remember that if you show up and you say, yes, this part of this mental health aspect of this character in my book showed up because I have some personal history with it, whatever it may be, your audience is going to connect with you on a deeper level. They're going to really treasure your honesty and the fact that you showed up in such a candid way. And it's also important to remember that, this is just a conversation normally between two. Today it's between four people that others get to eavesdrop in on. And like Lillian said, people love people. We love the stories of others. This is why we love to show up to like a Lifetime movie or a Hallmark movie. You know, we want to hear what this story is. So to get to hear a conversation, I'm the biggest eavesdropper there is. I love sitting in the coffee shop or a restaurant and listening to what's going on over there and, oh, what he's getting in trouble tonight, you know, that kind of a thing. The podcast allows you to do that on purpose. So, you know, give of yourself in this conversation and show up and be present from the pitch and, you know, throw out topics that are unique. Don't come and say, you know, I'm an author, I write fiction.
Hmm.
We know, you know, give us something else. Give us something that has to do with the book, without the book. If you don't have a book yet, then what is this journey like for you? What have you been doing up until this point? What made you wake up and say, I want to be an author and this is what I'm going to tackle and how I'm going to do it? What is your writing ritual? You know, I've talked to people who get up at 5 a.m. and they light a candle, or they have to have their cup of tea, or they only write from the garden. Or one client lives in a trailer that she drives all around the country, and that's how she does her writing. You know, these are all unique things that we want to hear. So be unique in the topics that you present and make sure that this pitch has everything a podcast host could possibly want. Hyperlink everything. Do not make someone Google you. They can Google you if they want to, but they shouldn't have to. Everything should be right there in that pitch email so that they can click on your link. They can find out where you've been interviewed. They can find everything from your pitch. And that's what's going to get the yes right away.
I love that.
Yeah.
We actually did a podcast about branding, and you know what you're saying is very much branding and selling yourself and making those connections. I want to pivot just a little bit. Lillian, you released a book this year. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your book and why you decided to write it, and who you hope to find it in the hands of?
Well, the idea for the Powerful Publicity Prescription, which I released back in June, was because there were quite a few authors and entrepreneurs that came to me and said, do you have a book? Would you write a book? Following you on social media is fantastic for the daily tips, but I'm not getting the whole picture on a daily basis of why PR is important and what I can do with it. And I wanted to give them a resource that they could refer back to, because I'm tired of so much of my industry leaving the author, the creative entrepreneur, the coach, the small business owner, the nonprofit behind. So many of the books in this industry are either student textbooks or they are written in service of other publicists or for government or corporate relations, which is fine. There is a need for that. But I've always believed that the entrepreneur deserves to get on those podcasts and be on the stage as much as the CEO of a Fortune 500 company does. So in writing this book and in building the framework for it, I looked at it as, you know, what are some of the most common questions I get? In all of the speaking engagements I've done over the years and all the clients I've talked to, all of the ways that they've presented their limiting beliefs and their unrealistic expectations. How can I build this framework in a way that's going to take them on this journey on how I demystify the world of public relations? So I start off with the history of it as a discipline, going into some of the most common questions I get, which is, you know, how does it compare to advertising, email, and social media, right? What makes it different? How and why authors can utilize it. And then I really jump into some of the most popular PR myths that people believe in that can stop them from moving forward, because they feel like PR as a discipline, as a strategy, is only afforded to those that are celebrities and that have $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 to spend on a campaign, which is not true. And from there, I really focus on these are the PR myths you may believe in if you are leading with fear, if you are coming at it with a scarcity mindset and looking at what you have to lose versus what you have to gain through this. If you're leading with anxiety, this is how it can look, or imposter syndrome, how you may be self-sabotaging yourself. And I really dig into how to recognize the triggers that will force those types of emotions and those beliefs to the surface, and then really utilizing affirmations, mantras, things like that I use with my clients and I use myself on a daily basis on how to push past that before diving into here's the general framework of a PR strategy. Your media kit, your media pitch, your media list. What are every single one of these elements? Why are they important? How do you build one? And here are some of the tools that will help you save time and energy doing that. And I even dive into how do you avoid writing a bad PR pitch that's going to get you rejected? How do you pitch a podcast versus a magazine versus a local TV show? And when it comes to interviews, how do you build that rapport with the hosts, with the audiences? What are the things that what are some of the common questions they're going to ask you that are going to allow you to share parts of your story? And I tell my clients this all the time. You choose where the line is between what is personal versus what's private.
Yeah.
And within the realm of what's personal, you can make those pivotal decisions on how much of it you want to share in terms of what I call the crossroads epiphany moments in your journey as a writer, and how making that pivotal decision took you down one path as opposed to another. Like, you decide how you want to share those elements.
Yeah. Well, this is such a fascinating conversation, and I feel like we could almost devote an entire hour to this, but we're going to be wrapping things up. But I want to go back to Michelle real quick about how authors or someone, they don't have to be an author. Okay, you've been on the podcast. How can you, after the initial broadcast, how can you create a valuable marketing content from that? You know, you've been on the podcast. How can you keep it going? How can you build upon that first podcast interview?
The way I compare the entire event interview to a dinner party, and you've been invited to the host's house. That's the podcast. You have had a great conversation, and now the dinner's over. What do? You're going to thank the host with, if it's a dinner party, maybe it's a handwritten thank you card. It's a text message. It's, here are the pictures that I took and we had such a great time. What are you going to do to thank the host from a podcast interview? And that's going to be sharing the content and creating more marketing content from it. Create graphic templates. I love Canva, so that you can plug in the cover art, plug in the show title, the episode number, share that as one on all of your different channels. Pull a transcript and identify quotes that you've done, because too often on social media, we're quoting other people when we can be quoting ourselves and sharing the information and the knowledge that we have. So pull your own quotes, create graphics for those. Create your own show notes, a blog post on your website. You can grab the embed player from Spotify, the 3 little buttons, right click. It has a little code. You literally copy and paste it. You don't have to be tech savvy to do this. Create a Spotify playlist for yourself and add every interview to that playlist, and then plug the playlist onto your LinkedIn under media for your current job. Plug it into your links for your bio on Instagram. You can plug that link everywhere, and every time you hit add that new interview to the playlist, it gets updated everywhere. It should be on your media press page. So these are all little places that you can add these in, and it creates a marketing content. If you are tagging the host, then they're going to share as well. So that ripple effect becomes bigger for both you and the host, because more people are now going to the podcast. So the host is loving it. More people are learning about you. So you're loving it. And it just becomes a greater way to increase the audience for both you and the host, and to say thank you.
Okay, I've got to do that Spotify. I did not know that. That's amazing. What a great tip. Well, I know our audience, they're going to want to keep up with you. Michelle, where can they find you?
You can find me at the michelleglogovac.com or the mlgcollective.com. I'm on Instagram at Michelle Glogovac. I am on Threads. I'm on Facebook. I'm on X, all of the places. And my book, How to Get on Podcasts, is available anywhere you purchase books. There's also an audiobook. So if you liked listening to me, you can listen to a good 6 hours of me on the audiobook as well.
And Lilian, where can they find you?
They can find me on my website, inretrospectwritingservices.com, on Instagram at Lilian Sue Copywriter PR. I'm on there 5 days a week, giving strategic PR tips and talking mindset. Or they can find me on LinkedIn. Just type in Lilian Sue and I'll pop right up.
Wow, this has been a wealth of information for our audience today, and for Hope and I as well. I do have a Spotify playlist with my podcast, but I didn't even think of linking it on Linktree. So I have some takeaways from this as well. Thank you both so much for joining us. Our next podcast is going to be whether to blog or to newsletter, or both.
Well, thank you guys so much. And until next time, everyone.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Hope Gibbs.
And I'm Donna Norman Carbone. It's time for you to get to work.
We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks with another tip from your author friends.